Hello everyone, welcome again from the corner of my room. Uh, in this video I will be demonstrating my own method of philosophical reflection. I may even include meditation in it. So I will be simply entering a reflective and meditational state. Basic elements of fire, air, earth, and water. I make you my witness. I welcome you to make the foundations of today's protrudence of the mind into the material realms. The very fact that you can protrude as reflections of your material reality is an indication that your material reality is not separate from its complete manifestation. You may be in abstract thought. You may be within what most people would call the domains of the spirit, but you are still material. Yet you are material within a dimension that is tied to our own dimension, that is visible. The human being thus stands between different emanations of the material reality. Fire, earth, water, and air. This is the traditional division of that foundational split of material reality. From it, and it's been specific from fire, stems light, which protrudes within darkness. The cosmos is overwhelmed with darkness, yet it is dotted out and emphasized by light. What gives the universe its glory and majestic beauty are the traces of light that coupled up form great constellations and galaxies. In such a way, man may reflect that high form, and he may not. Yet, him deciding to reflect the high form of the universe may be a positive or a negative reality. It is positive in the sense that he uplifts his own soul, and he admits that he is the paragon of all creation, and that he heads for the heavens. In other words, he reflects the idea that he wants to nurture a higher self, that which transcends the animal. Yet the animal is his destiny. The human being is placed on earth after all. He must be animated, lively, moving. He is stuck between earth and heaven. As many of the great Eastern traditions would acknowledge, we are the central point between earth and heaven. Yet it seems that as much as you, as a human being, stray away from the celestial, you seek it out. The more that you are distanced from it, the more that you need it. And this is the reality of the need for the meeting of opposites. The human being, which is the height of animal reality, is the most inclined, in terms of its consciousness, its highest faculty, to escape the animal, to protrude into the skies, to protrude into the earth, to protrude into other spheres of the animal world, which fragment themselves, which indicate life, but are not life in its full manifestation. An example of this are movements within cell bodies that many people study. The human being thus is anthropocentric in the sense of it meeting with its own opposite, which is that which lacks all of humanity, the material world which is silent. Yet this indicates the fact that it may be the case that if the highest and the pinnacle of human endeavor is the mind, then this may have a common feature or common faculty shared with the whole universe, which is possibly consciousness, or connectivity, or indication, or at the fundamental part, gravity. Gravity in the material world is physical. Gravity within the human world is tendency for the accumulation of strength. Strength may be physical, and strength may be mindful. It may be intelligent. A more intelligent human being is a human being which forces multiple aspects to gravitate towards the center. The center being that predisposition for thought. Likewise, a galaxy is defined by its center, the dark hole which is within the midst. Yet it is surrounded by the brightest of stars. Similarly, society is to be constructed in such a way. For if the strongest of galaxies in the world are the ones which accumulate the biggest amount of small yet significant dots of light, which are in fact huge stars, then we must see this in human beings as well. If we meet a human being, we may underestimate them as a star in the distance, but the closer you become to their consciousness, the more you are aware that they are a sun, S-U-N. Therefore, general power, centric power requires specificity. It cannot accumulate itself except by the seeking of that which requires gravity. If you are a person of gravity, then you must seek your own opposite, which is people of no gravity. That is the nature of the world. That is the way that the cosmos sends its sign to us. Yet, within the expanses we see a closer sky, the sky within which clouds move, the sky within which the wind moves, the domains which meet Earth. We tread through it every day. We are forced to its ground. Yet we are most affected by its upper level. When it is windy, we feel that more than we feel the change of the earth that we step on. When it is cloudy, our emotions change. Therefore, we must become aware of that if they will lead to a negative way. The wind is the accumulation of the element of air, air within movement. Wind cannot be seen, yet it is perceived in such a way that most of us think that we see it. And why is that the case? It is the case because wind is the first element among the other four, among the total four, which is powerful enough to move physically stable reality, trees, leaves. Water may move things, but water is prone to moving upon other things. Water shapes itself. Wind is dominant. Wind breaks. Wind passes through. Wind evaporates as well. Much more quickly than water does when its power is calmed down. What is the benefit of wind? Wind is able to change its movement within different cyclical patterns. It is able to defeat its own self, move forward and then fall down. It is able to move within circles. Water may do that as well, but usually it forms in such a way through rivers, and rivers take a longer time to form circles. A big exception would be whirlpools and sea storms. Yet it seems that water, for the most part within the world, moves in a fast, one-directional path. this path curves in quite a lot of situations, but it may not do so as significantly as wind does. Therefore, wind is the sign of movement within the now, within what is happening now. Wind reminds us of change within the time that we find ourselves in. Water, however, on the other side, reminds us of change which has been happening for eons, for ages. Water adapts itself. Therefore, it adapts itself to ages. Yet wind may change. Winds may inflict a region in one way for 10 years, and then they will never return in such a way again. You may have a storm affecting a region for a whole summer, and this never happens again for another 100 years. So wind is the most momentous element in terms of its frequency. Yet is fire more powerful than wind? Yet the question is fire more powerful than the wind? And how does this relate to the self? The more we dive deep into the complexities of the basic elements, the more we will see how they reflect our own selves and how we are reflecting them. The more we become aware of these changes, the more we are able to handle abstract emanations of change in our daily life. When we are at work, when we are at training, when we are interacting with human beings, we see their temperaments change, and their temperaments seem to accumulate a set amount of emotions, and these emotions seem to interact just the way that the material world interacts. Which poses the question, should we see the world in a way where we put emotion and reason before what is given to us on the outward, what is given to us from the material and natural world, or should we prefer nature first? Or should we not look at it as a preference and simply say that we stand between the both? And if we do stand between both, emotion and the outside world, then are we beyond our own emotion? If we're not, and if we're drenched within emotion, does that mean that we're drenched within the material world? If the first is the case, that we are incapacitated to some extent, or moved, motivated, and affected by our emotions, immersed in them, yet we are not within the material world, then does that mean that the cyclicities of the soul are more powerful than the cyclicities of the natural world? Compared to other animals and compared to other beings, emotions change by instinct. Some living beings don't have emotions, most probably like plants. Therefore, should we praise the man that overcomes his emotions? For he has become capable of overcoming or putting to control those aspects which overwhelm even natural power itself. And if emotions by default are supra-animalistic, they evoke a power from within the natural world which feeds off of our consciousness, then what is the human being which overwhelms its emotions? Is he even more powerful than that which is powerful, which is equal to or more powerful than nature itself? If this is the case, then the human being, which, seeing the elements in the world, controls their emotions, has placed himself as somebody who is a patron, a protector, and an exemplar of the outward imprints of change, which are within the four elements, and the inward imprints of change, which are the emotions. Let us continue observing fire. Fire is that element which burns. It is the destructive element. It is the element that many beings cannot enter. It is the element which cannot be entered. it is attached. Wherever it reaches, it may continue its burn. When something is set on fire, the fire expands until it has used up all of its fuel. And usually the fuel may be something such as a branch or a flammable rock structure, a coal, or perhaps old walls, or perhaps a living being. So it is doused off in those moments. It is set off in those moments when it does not have a movement inflating factor. That which sets fire and gives power to fire to keep flaming on is anything which has a movement inflating factor. Inflaming factor. I must correct myself. So the key point is that it ignites fire when it is movable, or rather when it moves, when it prods things to movement. Fire, therefore, is not like wind. It is not manifest within its movement, yet it is attached to movement. It overwhelms that which is moving it, that which prods it to movement. It is coincidental with movement. Fire, therefore, is akin to life, because life is defined by movement, yet life is kindled by the flame of consciousness. In our times, fire may be ignited by fuel. Oil was the traditional means to fire. So one of man's greatest weapons is fire. Yet it is attached to a liquid when brought to its most exhaustive point of destruction. Again, the meeting of opposites. In its natural form, fire would mostly spread only when supported by branches, when supported by movement prompting materials which may enable the spreading of fire. Yet then it became connected to liquids, dense enough to allow for the making of flames. The Greeks used this method to defend themselves. Many nations developed different weapons based on oils and fuels which inflame fire. But we are looking at fire in its most natural form, in its primordial connection to the human being, and not its connection via innovation. This is because man could not enter fire on his own in his primordial state. Man had to use other means to enable the usage of fire. Yet water, earth, and air are all elements which the human being may touch, sometimes grasp, and face. But fire seems to be the hardest to enter. It is nature's most overwhelming element, yet it is man's most distant and connected to tools type of element. Again, the meeting of opposites. When something is inflamed, naturally it overtakes, but the human being is able to use it as a weapon. In order to put down fire, you will use water. Water puts out fire. What is the human being standing in terms of their emotions? Water, air, and fire. Air within ourselves may be speech, in the sense of frequency, in the sense of the spreading of the voice throughout the expanse. But this is not air, this is a simulation of air. Water is that which we drink so that we may function better. But are we akin to fire? When we eat, our own cells, our own particularities take on the proteins. They take on pieces of food so that we can survive. They inflame them. They take them apart and turn them into other types of energies which enable muscles, which enable movement, and which expand the body or cure it from illnesses. Fire, in that sense, in the elemental sense, only exists, probably, in the human being in small instances and fragments. Yet many have compared anger to fire. Many have compared wrath to fire. But is wrath to be connected to fire? Only in its sense of ignition. Wrath is an emotion, an instability of righteous indignation, which arises in the moment when an emotion is kindled. Depression will cause a person to give up. Not wanting to give up, they will meet this with the opposite of strife, with the opposite of struggle. By doing so, they will create courage, and this will kindle rage, a reaction. The appropriate usage of this moment would be to convert this into righteous indignation, a proper way of anger. But it seems that this will mostly spark into a fire of emotion. So fire is seen as negative within the human being. But can it be viewed as a positive thing? Fire may be seen as something positive when we contextualize it in the sense of the human being having the capacity to stand up and to put a kindle to their directed rage, to righteous indignation. They see something wrong, they become fired up, yet they regulate their emotions. But this will unavoidably burn something. So we must be aware of that. As much as righteous indignation may be a good virtue, it will burn. And are we able to stop the fire? In most cases, it takes a lot of effort to stop a fire. It spreads in different directions. So righteous indignation may hurt and it may fire up things unnecessarily. Yet, on the other hand, it may have a positive side of kindling righteous indignation, courage, and motivation in others. So it can have a positive effect as well. This, however, may require other considerations. Now let us consider earth. Earth is what we are made of in the sense of our outward structure. We have skin of different color. We are clay. We are earth. We arise from earth. We are mixed with water. Water enables our movement. Earth enables our form. Earth has its limits. Earth is contained within its own self. Earth is an element that does not require an external container. Water flows and spreads to a certain degree. It has its limits. But its true density, its standing, its stability is impossible to fully establish without another container, without an external limiter. It has its advantage of forming to anything that you give it, yet it has the disadvantage of spreading wherever, in all directions, when given no form. Therefore, earth is formulation. Earth is the giving of form. This is why we say that things are grounded. They are given a form. They do not blossom in all directions without an idea, but they stay in a pattern which makes more sense to us. The human being, therefore, may have use from being grounded. And if groundedness is the salvation of form, then the usage of fire may be accomplished. That should be enough for today.